Hello, Packers fans. Welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, joined by Pete Dougherty. Pete, we've had a little less than 24 hours now to sort of take in and really think about all that went down yesterday evening with the Packers' blockbuster trade with the Oakland Raiders, sending Davante Adams out west to the AFC. Have you fully grasped it yet, or does it still seem like a joke that you're waiting on someone to tell you psych?
Oh no, I've fully grasped it after working on this subject for a couple days. Yeah, it's fully in, and I mean, that's how things work in this league. Things happen all big things happen a lot. Big change. Like I mean, look at Deshaun Watson. Just got a new team and a new contract. This is when big things happen. This is the time of year when big things happen.
We knew that coming into this offseason, there was a decent chance the Packers would place the franchise tag on Davante Adams, which they did. And Davante Adams reportedly told the Packers that he would not play on the franchise tag. That's not a huge surprise. He had said that for months, that he didn't want to play on the tag. But, Pete, they still had until July 15th to get a long-term deal together. I guess the question is not so much that are you surprised that Davante Adams wanted a trade, but that actually, yeah, that is the question. That is the best question. Because it seems like this was not anything to do with the Packers not being willing to pony up, as Packers News was able to confirm and others have reported as well. The Packers were willing to offer what the Raiders were because the franchise tag that they placed on him allowed him to still talk to other teams and the Packers to match those deals. The Packers were willing to match and exceed the Raiders' offer. This was simply a matter of Davante Adams wanting to go play with Derek Carr, who he played with at Fresno State, and wanting to go to Las Vegas. I mean, does that part of it surprise you that Davante wanted out?
Yeah, something. I just have to believe something happened during negotiations. I'm sure Adams starts off being unhappy with the team because with guys of that caliber, they usually extend their contracts with a season to go. And they didn't do that with Adams last year. They negotiated, but they weren't willing to pay Adams what he thought he was worth. So he played all last season, risking a catastrophic injury and losing out on tens of millions of dollars. So that probably puts him, in a bad mindset anyway. And then something must have happened with the negotiations this offseason. Something had to have happened that got him to the point where he didn't want to return. I don't know what it was. I'm poking around. I'm sure a lot of people are, but I don't think he just all of a sudden decided he wants to play with Derek Carr instead of playing, with Aaron Rodgers. I just find that really hard to believe that that's what this is all about.
Well, let me ask you, if you were Davante Adams and you knew that this was the situation, that you could return for a year and possibly get a long-term deal, that you would have another year or two with Aaron Rodgers to chase a Super Bowl, what would push you away? And you've covered this team for a long time. You know what they're willing to offer and how they structure these contracts. What would be your line in the sand if you were Davante Adams?
It might be something like if they told them they wouldn't use the franchise tag, then they used it, something like that. I don't know. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Something must have happened though. That was like the final straw. And sorry, that's I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that's my puppy crying in the background.
Yeah, he
That's
sounds
Albert.
cute.
But yes, something must have happened. I don't know what. It's so hard to put myself in his shoes because I mean, if I were him, I'd have been upset that they didn't extend. They weren't willing to pony up last year. I'd have been upset about that too. So, that's probably where it all starts. And then something happened this offseason. They had to have that was the final straw for him.
Mm-hmm. Of course, this now means the Packers have a first-round pick and a second-round pick from the Raiders in addition to theirs as well. So they have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. When you look at the deal that the Browns just gave up for Deshaun Watson, it's like 3 first-rounders, a second-rounder, a fourth-rounder, knowing that he might even be held out with legal trouble. It almost seems like the Packers got gypped a little bit for the best wide receiver in the game. But they can now take those picks and take that $20 million and put it towards replacing him. So let's just look ahead. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. We've got a couple of here about possibly replacing Davante. Mike Fagan says, who do you replace him with? Jarvis, Juju, Julio, and or draft picks. Juju, it should be noted, has just agreed to terms with the Kansas City Chiefs. So he is out of the running. But Jarvis Landry, still go ahead.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it's a super impressive list of free agents available. There's probably some good bargains in there, some diamonds in there, but I'm not sure who they are. And Landry is starting to get up there. I wouldn't touch Julio Jones. I mean, his body is just he's a shell of what he used to be. He's gotten cut 2 or 3 years in a row now. So I wouldn't touch him. I wouldn't trust that he'd get through the season healthy. So it's going to be mostly through the draft. But yeah, maybe a guy like Jarvis Landry. I could see signing a guy like that.
Let me ask you a question. After you saw what OBJ could do and become again with the Rams, I know he's got a long road ahead of him with recovery, but do you go ahead and take him as well and just say, well, we won't have him this year, but we'll have him next year, or we'd have him for the playoffs for this year?
Yeah, I personally wouldn't touch that. It's just way too risky for me. So no, I don't know what they think. Judging by their history, I would think that would just have very little interest in them. But I wouldn't even consider that if I were them.
And then Cole Beasley was let go by the Buffalo Bills as well, so he is also now on the market.
Yeah, I would just how many slot receivers can they have? They got Amari Rodgers, they got Randall Cobb. I mean, Cole Beasley on top. I think that's a tough fit. Even Landry is a tough fit because of that. But maybe Landry could play some on the outside.
Yeah. Armando asked, are the Packers also getting a player from the Raiders? That was an early report, but there has been nothing that we've been able to confirm on our end. But Pete, do you think that might still be a possibility? Is that something that, in your experience with these deals, could come up later and you find out, hey, a player was getting sent as well? Or at this point, would we have heard about it?
Oh, I'm sure we would have heard about it. And in fact, I think the Packers, just like in the last 5 or 10 minutes, sent out a release about the trade. So
yes,
it would have been in there.
Jerry says Adams is 30 years old. He might have had years of production. He's also 30 years old. He might not have had years more of production. In the end, and I know that you and our colleague Tom Silverstein both talked about this yesterday and today, do the Packers come out possibly better with getting the draft picks and the money, even though this year and next was sort of their championship window with Rodgers?
It could. I mean, it definitely could. It depends on what they do with that draft capital. It's easy to miss on picks too. So they could end up, some of these big trades you see where these teams get all these first and second round picks and then they have their drafts and 3 years later, they didn't draft any good players with those picks. So that can happen too. But yeah, this could long run, this could help them, but I find it hard to believe short term, as in the 2022 season, that it doesn't hurt them.
Mm-hmm. A really interesting question here from Atomic Count on YouTube. Pete, does this help keep 12 from trying to win in a certain style? We all know that in the playoff game against the 49ers, Rodgers infamously did not target a receiver not named Davante Adams until late in the fourth quarter. Does this force Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur to sort of mix up their playbook a little bit, so to speak?
It might, and that's one of the things that will be, I think, really interesting going forward and watching them next season is because, as a lot of people probably know now, they were 7-0 in games Adams missed in the last 3 seasons. And I think they might have averaged, I got to look it up again, I think it might have been right around 30 points a game. And there's an argument that Rodgers plays more by the book and stays within the offense and either doesn't force it to Adams or doesn't feel obligated to force it to Adams and just lets the offense come to him more. You've got to point out too, though, those 7 teams ended up in those seasons 57, 55, and 1. So it's not like they were these, a bunch of great teams they were playing. And one of them was the Chiefs, who were like 12-4, but the Chiefs in that game 2 years ago didn't have Patrick Mahomes. So the Packers winning that game, kind of hard to say they beat the real Kansas City Chiefs since Mahomes didn't play. So, I still think my hunch is they're better off with Adams than without him, and that it won't be addition by subtraction for the reasons you just went over. But I don't know that for a fact, and this season could end up proving that, in fact, it didn't hurt him at all and helped him. I mean, for all we know, it could turn out that way.
Mike asked, would you want MVS back and for how much?
Yeah, I'd want to bring him back now. He knows the system. He stretches the fields. He always had value there for stretching the field, and he improved some as a regular receiver. Just the other stuff last season. The health issues might concern you with the hamstring last year. But good question about how much. I got to think he's going to get $8 to $10 million bucks a year average. But you could, you do a deal like that. He's still coming in at a cap number this year. They could do it where the cap number is $5 million this year.
Mm-hmm.
I could see paying him that, yeah.
And then the question of the hour, and I'm sure of the next couple of weeks, Pack One asked, do we finally see the Packers draft a wide receiver in the first round?
Well, I cannot foresee the future, but it's got to be a real possibility, doesn't it? And I think I would keel over if they didn't draft at least one in the first 2 rounds with those 4. They have those 4 picks, 2 1s and 2 2s. But I would think there's a decent chance they take one in the first round. Not a given. It depends what they think of the board, and maybe they even move up to draft if there's a receiver, one guy they like especially. Maybe they even move up to take him in the first round.
There are a couple of guys that are hurt. And again, I don't know if you want to take that risk, but there are guys that would arguably go in the top 10, top 15 if they were healthy that might fall to the Packers there at 28 or their new pick from the Raiders, which I believe is low 20s.
22, yeah.
22.
22 and 53 they got from the Raiders, yeah.
So someone like George Pickens, Williams from Alabama, those are a couple of guys that you wouldn't think you would have a shot at that point in the draft that now you might. And again, you're asking both of them to recover in time for hopefully at least just the playoffs. But
what was a Pickens injury?
Knee, I believe.
Was it ACL?
I don't think it was ACL, but let me just double check.
I know Williams was ACL.
Uh-huh.
And so that'll be interesting if he's on the board when they pick at what's their pick? Are they at 28? No.
Packers are
26.
28. 28.
Are they 28? Okay.
Yes.
Because you can't count the guy. I mean, he tore it.
Pickens had an ACL injury last March.
Okay.
So he might be better by the time the season rolls around in September.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. If it was in March of last year, he's a year removed from the ACL then. Right. Williams hurt it in the championship game, right? So that's January. So you basically are redshirting him this year. You have to be okay with that. I don't know if I would do that with a first round pick. Teams have done it occasionally. I don't know that I would. I don't know if Gutekunst would or not. That strikes me as something he wouldn't do, but I don't know that for a fact. Second round, maybe. First round, that's asking a lot.
Yeah. We're going to take 1 or 2 more here before we sign off. One from Quinn. Does this press the need for more receiving tight ends to improve receiving game? And I'm going to add a question onto that as well. Does this press the need to re-sign Bobby Tonyan?
I don't know if this really changed the calculus on him. I would guess that they'd want to do it either way, but he's coming off the ACL too. I mean, he might not be playing until late October, and then when he comes back, is he going to be very effective even by the end of the year? So I was thinking he'd be a guy who'd probably be back at a really cheap 1-year contract, and then he'd try to hit the market again next year. But yeah, I think they have a huge need at tight end with or without Tonyan because of the uncertainty of his health and effectiveness going forward coming off the ACL.
And then additionally to that question, Randy asked, does this mean that we see Big Dog come back to Green Bay? That, of course, being tight end Mercedes Lewis.
I mean, they haven't cut him yet, so it's a possibility. I mean, he's going to be 38 this year. That is just ancient for a guy at a skill position, even tight end.
Right.
and he's just mainly he's almost exclusively now a blocker. I'm a little surprised. I thought this would have been the year where they finally moved on. I know LaFleur loves him and loves having him in the locker room. Rodgers loves having him around. So that must count for a lot, but I'm a little surprised. I thought this would be the year where they would finally move on from him. Maybe with how thin they are at tight end, they're trying to work out bringing him back for another season, a little cheaper if he would take the minimum. But if it's for the minimum, he might just call it a career. Who knows what he's thinking?
Yeah, might not blame him. I feel old and hung up at 30, so I know he probably does at 38. He's had a little bit of a tougher career than me, though. All of that to say, I can see you laughing. I'm going to just keep rolling right on past that. We're going to continue to have more coverage of this, and not only Davante Adams of it all and why he wanted to leave the Packers, but of course what this means for the Packers moving forward. We'll have complete coverage throughout the weekend, and I'm sure in the next couple of weeks as the Packers look to replace him on PackersNews.com. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Pete, go get a nap before Wisconsin's tip-off at 8:50. It's going to be a late night. I'm here in Milwaukee, so we'll have coverage for you on JS Online as well for that game. Who are you taking tonight, Pete, between, let's see, I got the bracket right here, Wisconsin and Colgate, and then I think the LSU, I can't remember who they're playing.
I didn't do a bracket this year, so I haven't really even looked at it. I mean, Wisconsin's a 3 seed, right? So,
yeah.
Pretty hard to pick against them, but that was last year, a couple of 14 seeds ones last year, I think.
And then Kentucky
but they're in Milwaukee, so they're in Milwaukee. They might as well be playing at the Kohl Center,
Right. And it was funny earlier today during the Purdue game against who were they playing earlier today? I want to say Vermont, but I know that wasn't right. Whoever Purdue was playing, they had a lot of fans cheering for them since there were a bunch of Wisconsin fans in there cheering against Purdue. So that was a lot of fun to listen to that one as well. Like I said, stay tuned to PackersNews.com, JS Online for full coverage of Davante Adams and March Madness. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks.